nationality is Indonesia. His religion is Islam. You know, he'd have you believe he was never a Muslim. Well, Islam is Muslim, and after he got sworn into office, now he's like basically catering to the Muslims. You know, during the campaign, you could not use his middle name of Hussein. When he was sworn in, he becomes Barack Hussein Obama.
Then he went to Egypt. Then he went to Egypt and said, "I have the same religion as you," and spoke Arabic from the Quran better than many people in the country. They were shocked by it, and just incredible.
And then also, Alex, if you recall, he mentioned about the United States. The United States, he said, has the largest Muslim population in the world. I mean, and then he goes apologizing around the world for the United States actions in the past, and then he bows down to the Saudi king. No president of the United States has ever bowed down to anyone. He bows down, and there's a question if he kissed his ring, also the Saudi king, and then when he's in Japan, he bowed down to the Japanese emperor.
And then they lie and say he's dropping things, but we have the video where he clearly bows to everybody, and it gets worse because we know that his real name is Barry Soetoro. We know we have a president who's using an alias. We know that he was adopted, and the media is not even denying that. They just don't even cover it. I mean, this is so huge.
Well, a great point in which you brought up, because and your listeners can compare it to, look what they did to Sarah Palin during the last 6 weeks of the campaign. The reporters in droves went to Alaska, went under every stone, behind every door, asked her all kinds of questions. Now think back what they did with Obama. They've never asked him anything. If they properly vetted Obama, he would never have been nominated, let alone be elected president. I mean, it's really, and I was interviewed by the New York Times, and I said, I wish I could sue the national media, including the New York Times, for not properly vetting Obama. They even had the guts enough, they printed that. They printed even so in the New York Times, because it's a disgrace. But the problem is, and I laughed about it 2 years ago when Bush questioned Russia about Putin with a free press. We don't have a free press in this country. Most of the press in this country is now owned by 3 or 4 major corporations, and there was a study done, except the person who was really the source for the information has not allowed his or her name to be released, but there's supposedly an office in the White House that is keeping pressure on all these media outlets to not discuss this story. But we're bypassing that. The American public is waking up, and that's my goal this year. That's my goal to raise the public awareness, because all of you out there, excuse me, must show your birth certificate. Now, why is this important? Well, there's nothing, as my opinion, and many others, there's nothing more important than the U.S. Constitution. I'm doing this for there are about 305, or maybe there's 308 million people in this country that deserve to know the truth. I'm doing this for our forefathers who wrote this fantastic document, which countries around the world have tried to copy and duplicate. Most have not. And I'm also doing this, Alex, for the 1.6 million men and women who have died in battle to try to defend this Constitution, and another 1.6 million who have been injured or maimed fighting these wars, and the millions of others who have served our great nation in wars, in wartime and peacetime, defending this Constitution. And then you have Barack Obama, who basically doesn't care about the Constitution. And aside from the things we're talking about, which is the First Amendment, he's talking about things on the Second Amendment and other. I could go on and on about other issues, but we don't have to go
Phil, let's expand. Let's expand on that.
Sure.
For 2 weeks, when the ClimateGate emails came out, the media wouldn't cover it. Then for another week or two, they said it wasn't real. Then they were forced to say, okay, it's real. And now they admit it's all been a giant fraud, basically. And so we see this stonewalling by Obama, also saying there's no way our health care can fail. It will pass. It's like this Borg, you will be assimilated, resistance is futile statement. And it's the same thing on the birther issue. It is hurting him. I know there's a cover-up. I know he hasn't released the real birth certificate. I know he's blocking all the school records. I know he's blocking his records when he came back to Hawaii, separate from the birth certificate. Why would they be covering all this up if there wasn't something there? It's a fact they're covering it up, listeners. It's a fact they haven't shown the real birth certificate, only the certificate of live birth. It's a fact, a fact, a fact, and it's not going to go away. And if we're 13 months into his presidency, and he's got the lowest approval rating of any president 1 year in history and plunging even faster, I mean, he's breaking just every record. This is devastating him, whether he likes it or not. and stalling their entire agenda, which I think is a great thing regardless. But now I'm getting to the point where it really does, to me, look like that he's not a citizen.
Oh, absolutely. Up to now, and it's even higher, but the latest figures I had are 1.6 million. People say it's 1.7 or 2 million. For your listeners out there, Obama has spent at least 1.6 million fighting my 3 lawsuits and 50 other lawsuits that came about. You don't spend that kind of money. You don't spend that kind of money unless you're really hiding something. And he's hiding.
I want to go to calls.
Why is he hiding? He's hiding because he's a phony and a fraud. I really think, and I don't know what your listeners think, I think he's being blackmailed internally. And what happens when Iran gets this? What happens when China gets this? What happens when Cuba gets this? I think he has put our country in a dangerous, dangerous position. Not only and on top of that, what he's doing, but, I could go on forever what he's doing, but I'm concerned with Eric Holder. One of my cases, the case where I say he's an illegal alien and shouldn't have been a U.S. Senator, we have one of the issues, we just filed our appeal to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. If there ever was a conflict of interest, ladies and gentlemen, let me set it forth real quick. In those type cases, they're called False Claims Act cases. It was sealed because of that, not because it was something special. All False Claims Act cases are sealed. False Claims Act are usually done in Medicaid or Medicare fraud. Hypothetically, if I believe my next-door neighbor is committing fraud, what I would do is I would file this action on behalf of the United States of America and as the relator. They call the person filing it relator, R-E-L-A-T-O-R, and then versus Jane and John Doe from next door. Well, Jane and John Doe are not served. The Justice Department is served. The U.S. Attorney is served, and they have 60 days to review the case. So let's equate that, what I did. I filed this against Obama. So Obama's not served, but the Justice Department.
Well, let me be clear. Let me be clear. In layman's terms, the government is not a party to the suit. They don't have standing to be heard. Only you, the citizen, does. And so are you saying that the Justice Department has no right to even block you?
Let me clarify a little more. Actually, what happens is you're bringing this action. The government has 3 choices what to do. Number one, that they can pursue the case against Jane or John Doe, in this case against Obama. Number 2, they can give it to the relator, the person bringing the action, in this case me. Or number 3, they can dismiss the case. In very few cases they ever dismiss the case. Many times they give it to the relator to proceed because they don't want to spend the time or money on the case. It depends the value, how much, et cetera, et cetera.
I understand. They're defending the case is what you're saying. Listen, I know you're very busy, but I want to be able to take a lot of calls, but I want you to also have time to speak. Okay. Can you stay with us about 15 minutes in the next hour?
As long as you want me. I'll stay 2 days. I'll stay a week with you. You're great.
Well, we're going to then let you finish up, and then we're going to take calls for 30 minutes into the next hour because I want to hear the different angles and points that listeners will bring up on this front. But shifting gears again, I want to get this question out there. What do you think of the Arizona House passing it out of committee 6-1, and now it looks like right at half of the legislature is set to vote, and they're gaining votes that they may pass a law in Arizona saying if Obama runs again in the next 2 years, starts his campaign up to be on the ballot there in Arizona, that he's going to have to show his real birth certificate?
I think it's fabulous. It just shows that the issue I started, and Alex, I don't care who crosses the finish line with it. I'm glad I'm out there, and I'm going to stay with this issue. I think it's fabulous. A congressman, I don't have his name, from Florida, introduced legislation in the House of Representatives in Washington to the same effect that as of 2012, any presidential candidate has to show that they're constitutionally qualified. Only about 7 to 10 other Republicans joined in that action, no Democrats. Now, why haven't the Democrats joined? Because the Democrats know he's a phony. But this is great since Washington's not doing. Arizona is. That's fabulous, and I hope other states do that. And I think they're realizing that the Constitution, stop and think, everyone out there. We have such great things in this country. And why do we have it? We have it because we fought to defend this. We had a fight with England to form our country. People have died defending this Constitution, and we have this fraud, this phony of Obama coming up there, the biggest hoax in our history. It's wrong, everyone out there.
Well, let me stop you again. Let's say he really was born in Hawaii. Right. Why is he covering it up? But let's go further. He was adopted and became an Indonesian citizen. That's on record.
Right.
And then he tried to lie about that, even though it's in his book. And now I've seen him in a few speeches. We played it a few months ago. Maybe we can pull it up. In fact, try to YouTube. Obama refers to himself as Barry. He's even joked around and called himself Barry Soetoro as if he's trying to inoculate people to this fact because he knows it's coming out.
Oh, absolutely. I think we're really getting to him.